lot of you probably recognize this space as the place where I would film videos during the academic year, and you're probably wondering why the fuck am I here right now on the 4th of July? Well, that's because this is where I'm meeting somebody, and then we're going to have some hangouts and celebrate a snake's birthday. That's pretty exciting, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is something that happened in this building behind me in April. And I'm not talking about the convention that I ran in this building. I'm talking about the meeting that I had with the Graduate School of Education and the Office of Educator Prep for this school that's in this building, and why the decision I made especially now with the passage of the big beautiful bill, was the right decision. So I was in a 5-year combined bachelor's and master's program where the bachelor's was whatever subject you wanted to teach. For me, it was English, so I ended up with a bachelor's degree in English. And then the master's was the certification and the EDM, which is actually an educational master's, or an MS Ed is required in this state of New York in order to teach, which is fine. But you would do student teaching through your 5th year in your master's program. I'm sorry about the camera. I'm still trying to figure it out. I was going to make this video last night. I forgot to. Anyway, they were talking about that they had some issues, other issues, that thought that they didn't think I'd be able to complete student teaching for a bunch of reasons. One of those reasons was because my social media. Apparently, if one parent complained, you didn't get due process, you just got removed from the school. And I said, no, I'm not going to remove my social media because I felt like I could do more good and also make more money off social media than from teaching, because teaching is not a career that pays a lot of money. In this city, you with a master's degree start between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, depending on which district you're in, and that's even with the private schools. With a master's degree, you can start at about 50, and that's because the cost of living here is relatively high. But the reason I said I could do more good with my social media is because I'd be able to talk about things without a filter. A lot of you know that I shitpost. For example, my most recent short posted was me saying I debunked Australia. That is obviously a shitpost. But it's funny and it gets people to watch, and when people watch, people come and they might watch your serious stuff too. And by doing that and by clipping things and all of those things and making shorts and having fun, you can see some really cool stuff. You can build an audience. Right now, for June, 7% of my viewers were returning. Which that meant 93% of my viewers either were new or hadn't engaged or viewed my content in the last 365 days. Obviously, you want about 30% returning and 70% new if you want to grow. And then as you are stabilizing, you probably want that about 40 new, or 40 returning, 60 new, and then 50-50, and then 60-40 the other way. But what I found interesting is that while I was in there was a lot of talk about how they didn't want you to have social media because of parent complaints and things like that. And what I heard was, don't be queer on social media. And I am still considering taking legal action against the school. I just need to actually get in contact with a lawyer at some point. I am not going to be doing student teaching in the fall. In fact, I won't be going full-time to school in the fall. I will be going part-time, taking 2 graduate courses in the School of Education to get an EDM that doesn't lead to initial or professional certification. And I'm quite happy with that because it will get me a master's degree, which I can use for a few other things. I was considering actually going back and getting another undergrad degree in a STEM field, potentially like an earth science thing, something of that nature. I don't really know. I might go back and get another undergrad degree because it's cheaper than paying student loans. But now that the big beautiful bill passed, or one big beautiful bill, or the worst bill in American history, whatever you want to call it, Trump's piece of legislation, now that that's passed, I'm absolutely happy that I made the decision to remain on social media, because it allows me to have a platform where I don't have to censor myself. One thing that a lot of people may remember from school is you would ask your teacher, hey, who did you vote for? You might ask your teacher, hey, who did you vote for? And they'd say, I can't tell you. Or, hey, are you a Democrat or a Republican? They'd say, hey, I can't tell you. Or for me in third grade, when one kid said that we should nuke Iraq off the map during the Mesopotamia unit, the teacher couldn't say anything other than, hey, I don't think we should say that, and not, people deserve rights, because that was seen as political speech. And they don't want teachers to have political speech. They don't want teachers to get online and have opinions in regards to anything going on. They want teachers to go out there and teach and do what they're told. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not willing to do that. Now, when I had this meeting, I do have some other things to say about when I had this meeting that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But this beautiful bill caps graduate loans at $150,000, caps undergrad loans. I think are still capped at the $38,500 for the independent students and stuff like that. But the school I'm at right now has a medical school, right? I'm not at the medical school. I'm at the campus that has the law school. The law school charges about $12,000 a year, but there's also other fees for law school. There's tuition, there's fees, there's professional fees. That you might have to have an internship that's not paid. And if your internship's not paid, how do you buy food? Well, you get a loan. And if your Grad Plus loan or your Professional Plus loan isn't enough, you're not going to be able to buy food. You're not going to be able to do the internship. You're going to be at a disadvantage. And it's bad. And this is the same thing for doctors. Doctors have 4 years of medical school. The first 2 years are preclinical. You sit in a lecture hall. And you go and you do your lecture hall, you do your lectures, you do your exams. It's just like, essentially it's accelerated undergrad at that point. It's the same thing you've been doing since you were in kindergarten. And then they go and do clinical years, which is 2 years in a hospital. And what you do during those clinical years is you rotate through. Maybe you have a week with a cardiologist, or 6 months with a cardiologist, 6 weeks with an anesthesiologist, 6 weeks in general surgery, and all of those things. And as you go, you learn. And as you learn, you decide what specialty you want to do, and then you go and you match into residency, and that's a whole thing. You're not getting paid as a med student, but you're providing direct care to patients. If I go to the hospital this week, I'll have residents there taking care of me. If I go to the hospital from any time, from September to June, any year, I'll have residents, med students, and attendings taking care of me. And probably some fellows, depending on what it is, because in cardiology, if I ever went to there, or neurology, you have a fellowship and stuff like that. Those don't make much money. And now, one thing this big, beautiful bill act has caused is the military to say, hey, what about recruitment? Come to health service professionals. You get to make X money, and we pay for your schooling, and you get to be a full bird colonel as an attending physician. Which really the only reason you're a full bird colonel is because you're supervising lower medical professionals of lower ranks. You're not going to become a general being a colonel in the medical corps unless you become like general of the medical corps. You're not going to actually get up. It does pay a little bit more than the general 7 pay scale, but still. It's not great. And with all that, they got to think, like, do I want to do that? How long do I have to do it for? Because the commission takes forever, and it takes a long time, and you have to pay the money back via money or service, and it's a whole thing. Now, another thing that was mentioned, or that I was feeling like, was I didn't want to continue in the education program. And I had actually been considering dropping out, but my friends kept saying, no, you need to keep going, do it, even if you don't want to work in education, because I pretty much made the decision that I, at the very least, was not going to work in the classroom. And if anything, I would do curriculum design or something like that so that I could influence curriculum in a way to get technology out of the classroom. When I did observations, I noticed that kids didn't have textbooks. They had Chromebooks. Carried a Chromebook and a charger around, which I find that absolutely disgusting. Children should not be exposed to technology, at least not in the way that we are. Technology should not be the main way we interact with what we want to learn. I also just recently took a class in young adult literature for the summer because I needed to add that into what I needed to do for the summer, or for the program. That was when it was taught, and so I took it. And This course mentioned that instead of teaching the novel, we should teach the graphic novel or movies. And we shouldn't have students write essays about these things. We should have them do things like a podcast or a reduction or make a comic about it. And we had to do these assignments, and I thought all of them were stupid. I could see doing them with 6th graders, 7th graders, but 7 to 12? 7th grade, maybe. The beginning of 7th grade, you start and you scaffold up in building an essay. But I was writing essays in 5th grade. We learned the 5-paragraph essay in 5th grade, and then we learned longer in 6th. And then in 7th was when we started writing research papers. We had to do one of those throughout my entire, well, 2 of those throughout my entire English undergrad. One was in Chaucer, and one was in the Bible as literature. And then I ended up doing a second one in the Bible as literature just simply because I took it as an additional course. And then we didn't have to, and then in my graduate courses, we've yet to do one. In 15 credits of grad work, no, I'm sorry, 15, 18, 21, because I had some undergrad, in almost 30 credits of grad work, we've not had any sort of research papers done, which is really weird because generally a culminating experience for a graduate program is a very long research paper called a thesis. And this program that I'm in is anti-intellectual. And I hate to say this, but it's anti-intellectual because it wants to focus on technology. For a long time, we were told, hey, don't use Wikipedia as a source. Now, I'll use Wikipedia as a source because it gives me a starting point. I don't use it in main research, but for a YouTube video, it's fine. But for the main research or writing a paper, I'll start there and go somewhere else. But no, they want us to use AI. In multiple courses in this program, we have been told explicitly to use AI. In a meeting with the dean, I was told that teachers had no right to ban students from using AI. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And the AIs that we use Copilot here, the AIs that we use don't do anything good. And it's absolutely ridiculous that the profession that's supposed to be about making students and making people more intellectually curious and lifelong learners is full of people who want to do the opposite of that at this school. And I am, quite frankly, aggravated by it. But with the big, beautiful bill passing, unfortunately, we're going to have even more ignorant people. And I don't mean ignorant as an insult. I mean it simply as just the meaning of the word of not knowing. And it's going to be because of the bill defunding education, defunding medicine, defunding medical research, and pushing for crap like AI. And unfortunately, this school is very much in on that. And I'm genuinely surprised that this school, which was founded over 170 years ago as a medical school, is pushing this AI crap. But I'm honestly grateful that I'm going to be part-time in the grad school of education, just taking classes and not having to figure out how I'm going to apply them into a classroom, because, I'm not going to be in one, because it'll allow me to actually state my opinions. And I'm grateful that I didn't delete my social media, because it also allows me to state my opinions, as well as make income from other sources. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Sammy5436, Twitch, Sammy5436, TikTok, Sammy5436. There's 3 other YouTube channels linked to me in my channel link. You can follow me on Instagram at Sammy54361 and Samantha P54361 on Instagram. You can follow me on Patreon at Sammy5436, and I am on that blue site at Sammy5436. So go ahead, and if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button, comment, and hit the bell button. I'll talk to you later.